Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here in sunny Miami. I'm really excited to introduce my panel. I'm Ashimi. I'm the founder and CEO of Mad Global. We are an innovation-focused creative agency working at the intersection of culture, creativity, and technology. And I have a fantastic group of women here, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And then we're going to talk about marketing and promotion for digital fashion.
Should I just give a quick intro?
Yes, please.
Cool. Thanks, Ashumi. I'm Danny Van de Sand. I'm the founder of ULO, short for Unidentified Landed Object. We are a agency and innovation arm for top consumer brands looking to make their foray into Web3 and the metaverse. I've been in the metaverse space since 2016, touching all mediums, virtual reality, blockchain, augmented reality, projection, mapping, you name it. Previously to starting the company, I was at Snapchat working on the R&D side of the business on augmented reality, and I also launched the advertising platform that drove revenue for the company. And just super excited to be here.
Hello. I'm Gianna. I'm the Global Director of Marketing and Partnerships at Spatial. First of all, I'm just happy to see so many wonderful faces here today. You know, it's like, hi, I see you, Spatians. But yeah, I'm from Spatial. We are a 3D immersive platform that's deeply committed to preserving art and culture on the internet and creating space for that to happen. Before in my career, I started, for a lot of Spatians who know me, I started in advanced engineering using Rhino and CAD. I was in experiential marketing for a very long time, drove very impactful partnerships throughout my years, and coming to Spatial has been really a dream. I love working with the women on this panel that I'm honored to be with, who are incredible designers, and I look forward to this conversation with you guys.
We gotta pass the mic. GM, all right, I just have to amp up the hype level a little bit because I think we're sleepy after our lunch. Sorry. My name is Janie, otherwise known as, it still makes me cringe sometimes, I am Jumpstart Janie on Web3 social media and Web2. I am a content creator, a brand strategy consultant, and I am newly minted by the Fabricant, which if you do not know is a digital fashion house. Okay, I appreciate that, thank you. And so I'm there as the head of marketing and growth. So I am just super excited to be here. We have a launch coming up, which you can get on the wait list for, which you should definitely do, and I'm giving you the tea right now on that. And my background, my Web2 street cred is 15 years in the industry of beauty and fashion. I'm Asian, I don't raisin, I can say that because I'm Asian. Sorry, I didn't even have my coffee. I'm running on adrenaline right now. But yeah, I've been helping to build, launch, and scale brands in Web2. Also spent the last 10 years in Asia, Hong Kong, China, Macau, South Korea, and covering APAC. And now we are somewhere Web2, Web3, stuck in the blockchain or trying to get beyond that. So excited to be here. Oh.
I got mine. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here and, yes, being surrounded by these amazing women. My name is Layla. I'm a co-founder of Artisan. It's a digital fashion platform that travels seamlessly between physical and digital worlds, and we're driven by sustainability and limitless creativity. I come from Belarus. It's a tiny country in Europe. My past career was in TV. I was a TV host for 10 years, and fashion has always been my way of expressing myself and practicing all kinds of activities, from charity to revolutions, literally. So I'm really happy to be here, and fashion is my big passion, and I'm really happy that we are creating this new generation of fashion together.
Amazing, thank you. So just to start, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper and go into, with you, each of you individually, through some of the case studies for some of the brands that you've worked on and some of the projects that you've launched. Because something that, you know, this space, especially going through Web3 projects, pushing the boundaries on the go-to-market is increasingly becoming more important. How do you get more, how do you get this onboarding? How do you get more people to kind of find out about what it is you're doing, the visibility, the onboarding, the education. There's always so many different layers and pillars to when projects are launching in the space. So Danny, maybe we'd start with you, and maybe if you can talk a little bit more also about the augmented reality part of some of the projects that you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in the beginning of a very long journey into Web3 and the metaverse. I think oftentimes we forget how new this is for people. I'll give you an example. We launched a interactive site with a digital item for Chrome Hearts and Drake a little while ago, and you could actually interact with that 3D model on your iPhone screen. 90% of people had no idea you could even touch the screen and interact with that. So I think we're really early on in the space, and so what we do is try to find sort of really launch products in a way that merges both the Web 2 and Web 3 space. So for example, we're launching an augmented reality campaign for a top beauty brand featuring AR looks, makeup looks, and we're launching that as a Web 3 auction, but also across socials, across Web 2 channels. So I think it's important to think about both the novelty and sort of using the technology in new, interesting ways, but also supplement that with mass adoptable campaigns so that more and more people can get a feel for this. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff happening. We saw, obviously, Reddit reach a much wider audience with their launch. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening with Instagram in terms of introducing digital collectibles to mass audiences that we're seeing. So things are moving. I think we just keep experimenting, but always think about not just the activation itself, but like how are we going to get this out to a wider audience? What is the language we're using? How is it going to be distributed across other channels, even if it's just capturing content inside of a metaverse experience that can be distributed across top social channels. Like this is how we're going to get wider adoption.
Yeah, amazing. And maybe, because I know, Gianna, at Spatial, you're always launching so many fantastic functionalities. Maybe you can talk us through some of the most recent ones, the most recent sort of updates. And also, I know we talk about this a lot, but I know Spatial has been also doing quite a lot on the interoperability side with some of the other platforms. Maybe you can give us a little bit more insight into that as well.
Are you getting me to drop the alpha, Ashumi? Is that what's going on? So, at Spatial, if you're not familiar about Spatial, it's good to know where we stand in this conversation. So Spatial is an immersive platform, and as we start to think of the multi-dimensional internet, which is what we're looking at right now, Spatial works across web, AR, VR, and we're, have our iPhone and Android apps as well. So we're massively accessible, which is helpful as we start to approach, the mass market. This year has been really interesting for us because we focus on core principles as a platform. We believe that the technology, for it to be incredibly impactful, it needs to have impact that is both IRL and digital. And so for us, we have a huge focus on things like diversity and inclusion, human rights, arts and education, and sustainability. And when we talk about inclusion and diversity, that also helps us start to think about sustainability. They are two sides of the same coin when we talk about fashion. And so for this year, what we've seen in championing those values is two things. One, we've worked with incredible brands like Tommy Hilfiger, where we have physical collections and digital collections that are unlocked in Spatial. But also, we've seen this unlocking of new and fresh talent. These new designers, they are working with Chloe, they are designing digitally, but they have nowhere to show their work. And there's no audience globally that is able to connect with them. So the real opportunity that we're seeing, at least in the first phase of fashion using immersive technology, a lot of it is prototyping. Imagine being able to have a collection, but for the first time, you can interact with that collection. You can drop those 3D models into a live space where people can view it, interact with it, wear it. So as a designer, especially a new designer, this is important as we think about sustainability and how this technology can impact the future. 10% of the carbon emissions in the world are generated by the fashion industry. As much as we love fashion, it's incredible, it also has an astonishing impact on sustainability. But what if we used immersive technology in fashion and these new routes of monetization to prototype our new collections, understand what our collectors are looking for, give new, fresh creators an opportunity to showcase their work? And what I'm most excited about from all the time we've spent on Spatial this past year and seeing so many designers around the world is the new emergence of creativity in fashion and how we can optimize the manufacturing and production of the fashion industry if we start to embrace these new technologies that help us prototype faster.
Great, and maybe Janie, you want to add? I know I don't want to throw you in the deep end because I know you've obviously just started at the Fabricant and this is your first week and your first conference representing the Fabricant, but maybe you want to tell us a little bit more about the Whole Land project because that's the one that's been announced and that's the one that's coming up.
Sure. So yes, it is my second week at the Fabricant, and I'm here at Basel, sharing, and here at Dcentral. But I'm super excited. As I said earlier, the Fabricant is a digital fashion house. So they've done a ton of different collaborations, whether or not it's with Virgil Abloh and Off-White, which actually a lot of people do not know about. And I love streetwear, if you could not tell already. So that for me is a huge talking point of not just talking to women, but people who love street culture in different ways of expressing themselves. So in terms of Whole Land and this drop, the wait list, it is available. It's pinned on Twitter if you are on Twitter or listening on Spaces. But the drop is really about launching this whole idea of a digital immersive environment across different stories and chapters. And Whole Land and really the Fabricant, the essence of it really is this idea of being countercultural. I mean, that's why we're here in Web3, which is really just to be different than in Web2. Like, we want things to hit differently. So the way that I have really been thinking about the positioning is punk in Web3, that we want things to be different, we want to create differently, we want to collaborate differently, and specifically for the drop, there's going to be 7 accessories that will be launching in AR, and after that, there will be different facial pieces, as well as looks that will be dropping. And really at the essence with the Fabricant will be co-creation. You saw it before in previous drops, and really kind of just exploring new ways in the future about co-creating, which is something that is not as common in Web2 fashion, where really at the end of the day, it's extremely gated. They don't really want you to have any feedback on their designs necessarily and be able to impact. So I think that's what I'm super excited about.
That's great. We've touched upon so many interesting and different points here. So finally, I think with Leila, maybe we can talk a bit more about this hybrid, the hybrid nature of the physical and digital side of things, and your most recent collaboration with Meta Golden.
Definitely. Thank you so much for the question. I mean, I guess like Gia partially covered the topic of sustainability and the impact that traditional fashion has on our environment. And this is unacceptable, in my opinion. On top of that, there are also a lot of mechanics that manipulate people into buying things that they don't need, like Black Friday sales, and also a lot of things that trigger insecurities in people, and all of it we want to change with new generation of fashion. That is, of course, still beautiful and useful, but at the same time, we want to integrate new behavioral habits. So we at Artisan are also like kind of a lab where we experiment with new technologies and new solutions. And our drop with Meta Factory is like an experiment for us in a way where we decided to create a metaphysical drop where we combine a physical product with a digital product through a halo chip. It's a tiny silicon chip that is sewn into clothing, and then it can grant you all kinds of utility from proof of ownership and proof of authenticity to like tracking the history of this particular item to all the like sentimental memories connected to it, as well as other utilities, as for example, a wearable, Ready Player Me wearable that can be worn in all spatial spaces, and discounts to certain products and access to certain events. So definitely it's a new kind of product that allows you to connect to your community. And I mean, most of you, I'm sure, is like a holder of some kind of digital art piece, and you know how great it feels when you wear a certain piece and you recognize a person in the crowd that wears the piece of the same brand or the same community, and you just feel a connection. So I guess for us, creating this drop with Meta Factory, that is called Perfect for Art Basel, by the way, is the goal was to connect people, to unite people who want to change the traditional fashion, but also appreciate the beauty of fashion. And on top of that, we used new ways of production, such as zero waste, which exists and fully functional. We also used a local microfactory in New York that allows you to reduce shipment costs, as well as all the carbon emissions from shipping the goods from China or other faraway countries. And we also added pre-orders, which makes some people impatient about receiving their order, but it also makes you think twice before you click the buy button, because you'll have to wait for a few weeks before you get it.
So I have to actually say I said Meta Golden, but I meant Meta Factory, of course. But so, I think one of the things that I think a lot about also, of course, when speaking to brands ourselves, as we do at Mad Global, is we do sometimes get quite a lot of resistance, right, from brands wanting to adopt all of these technologies and all of these solutions, which are so readily available. Obviously, the technology all still exists. It's just a matter of the innovation part. How do you actually apply them to your various use cases? So what, in your opinion, this is just an open question for anyone on the panel or everyone, what are the main sort of barriers that you find that is sort of blocking brands from adopting some of these solutions, which are obviously ready and right there in front of them? New streams of revenue, the sustainability angle, reaching and getting into, getting more creators to get, collaborate. What would you say are the most sort of barriers for more adoption in this case? Anyone?
Well, I can just, share one of my favorite books, which is Innovator's Dilemma. I'm sure some of you heard about it. It was written in the late 90s, but I feel like it's still very applicable. And the idea is that sometimes startups that are started in a garage and in Silicon Valley beat huge corporations. And why is that? Because the process of making a decision in corporation takes literally year or two, from like creating a prototype, running tests, getting all the signatures, etc. While, when you're a young startup, first you have nothing to lose. You're eager, hungry, and ambitious, and you can pivot really fast. Like at Artisant, we changed our products. We had so many iterations of the product throughout this year because we feel the market. We can, make changes on a spot, and I feel like that's why smaller Web3 companies understand this technology better and adapt it much better. But I also see a lot of beauty in the process of evolution, because now big brands come to startups and we can work together and grow together, because we still need to understand that we need their power, we need their audience. We cannot just survive in a tiny Web3 pool talking just to each other about digital fashion. So it's very important to find the ways of collaborating with big brands. And I'm so happy that this year we launched collaborations with Maybelline and L'Oreal that are huge beauty brands. And on December 7th, we are hosting a very beautiful event with them in Spatial. So things like that make me very hopeful, and I can see that already big corporations making a step in the right direction.
I think it's, in my eyes, it's language and playbooks. So we're seeing language shift now. Obviously, we're in the bear market, so we're calling things, NFTs digital collectibles. I even saw PFPs as digital portraits. Metaverse. We were just chatting in the car. What's the best terminology? I'm sure.
Digital immersive environment.
Okay, great. We love it.
No more metaverse.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of stigma, unfortunately, attached to these words, and I think language is a huge barrier right now. The other thing is playbooks, something we've been thinking a lot about as sort of an innovation lab, in a sense. Thinking of, we're all experimenting now. Everyone here is experimenting. When you start to find something that works, repeat and iterate on that and share that playbook across the industry. I think that's really important. Having pre-built sort of use cases and packages for brands to plug into, even existing communities like Artisan or Fabricant, even Spacian's community, allowing brands to plug into that audience and kind of enter the ecosystem that way by aligning with us who've been in the space for a little bit is a great entry point. So I think we're really missing, in terms of language, we're getting better, and in terms of use cases, we need to make it a lot more digestible for mainstream audiences.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. And I mean, it was funny because we were just going back and forth as we were eating lunch and even on the Uber ride here, because, you know, when people who meet who are in Web3, who don't have a lot of friends and in real life community who are in the space, we're so excited when we meet our internet friends, and we just could not stop talking about all the things. So I guess when it breaks it down, I just think about, you know, exactly what Danny was saying. I think the language part, like Web3 is straight up a whole new language. I mean, we just need to make it make sense for everyone else out there. And it's the negative connotations that are involved, like NFTs. People immediately think it's a scam. They don't even know what a rug pull is in the Web3 terminologies, but they know in the Web2 terminology. The other thing that I would say in terms of education and onboarding is we need to bring each and every one of us in this room about 10 other people who don't look like us or look like us if we are a minority in some shape or form. And I'm actually gonna just go out and say that because that is what is gonna drive innovation and creativity in this space. And I mean, I'm Korean American. I lived in Hong Kong, China, Macau for the last 10 years, but there's something about bringing different people who come from all walks of life together that could actually change the atmosphere. And we're here in Web 2 because we want it to hit differently, and it's our responsibility. I'm gonna be mad cheesy and quote Spider-Man, which is, with great power comes great responsibility. So those of you guys like comics or like myself are into streetwear, I mean, even the case with Nike and you know, with them, I mean, I think they made a brilliant plan. We're talking about financials. I'm a business person at the end of the day. I'm dressed like a degen because we're here at a Web3 conference, but I presented to boards. I've, you know, negotiated, you know, deals with the government and various other parties, but I think what it comes down to is they want to understand the financials. What is the KPI? What is their ROI? How are you actually going to make money? You know, I think with Nike, the brilliant example is the acquisition of Artifact. Instead of actually trying to learn a space that they have no idea, they decided to acquire another company and then prove their case, right? We're talking about 185 million in primary sales and almost 2 billion in secondary. I mean, nobody in a board, finance people, is anyone working in finance here? No? Okay, we got degens only. But finance people, they love telling you no. Every time you ask for money, no. But I mean, in this case, if you're Nike and you're showing them the money, then they will give you some money. So I think that's an example for myself that I think they've just done a brilliant plan financially, and education is a whole nother thing. But I could talk about this forever, but I'll let my lovely guest speakers speak as well.
Love you, Janie.
I love you too.
We're on the same page here. You know, if you're listening to the women around the room, we've all worked in the industry, you know, outside of Web3 for a really long time. My experience before coming into Web3 was shopper marketing at Omnicom. So, you know, when you're trying to drive sales, and this is exactly what Janie was speaking about, they want KPIs, they want ROI, you know, they're trying to experiment in the space. What we try to shepherd brands in at Spatial is more about guiding them. It's that walk, crawl, run, right? And that's the same with creators and brands right now. And so the first step, though, is being, and I know this could be a little touchy in our industry because we're like, we love the blockchain, but it's so important to realize that there's too much friction in the payment systems. And you know, at Spatial, we care deeply about creators. Every day of our lives, on every single person on our team is invested in trying to clear the barriers for creators and clear the pathways so they could succeed. And what we see over and over again, I mean, like, I'm a persistent buyer, but it took me 20 minutes to wrap ETH the other day because I needed to have this dress for my avatar. Now, I'm a persistent buyer. But when you ask the mass market to do that, that's, you know, we're talking about a society globally that's used to swiping a card or issuing a paper statement for, you know, tender. Now ask them what a cold wallet is and a hot wallet is. And they're so confused and do that. And these are the things that confuse the mass market. They have no idea what any of this means. And they don't want to engage because you're trying to get them to learn a new system. So on one side, we have to educate, but on another side, we have to clear these barriers for the talent that's creating this fashion and the brands that want to enter the space, but they have a very mass market audience that is not familiar with these systems. So the more that we can do, and like to Janie's point, and as we all talk about the responsibility we have in Web3, we need to inspect these systems and facilitate ways that we can remove the barriers to entry and remove the friction in the payment systems so that our collectors can start participating in this ecosystem.
Sorry, we are just observing your guys' fashion and determining which fit we like the best.
Ooh.
Just kidding. But I was just thinking, I mean, we had a Zoom call before speaking on this panel that Subi was just very generous to create space for us. And I think we just couldn't stop talking with one another. And I think one thing that keeps on coming to mind as all of you guys are speaking is like, how do we onboard people? When I tell people that I'm now selling digital garments, they're like, WTF are you doing? Like, how are you gonna make money? Make this make sense for me. And so the way that I explain it to them in a customer journey is, imagine now, we all use Zoom. We all use video conference calls. So literally, I don't have to put on makeup. I could literally use some sort of filter, put on makeup, roll out of bed, wear a Uniqlo Aerism tank top, which I love, and if you don't know what that is, go DYOR, and then I would literally wear my digital garment and show up into a Zoom meeting. And I would also have my digital drip on me, literally some earrings from the Fabricant that is like hooked into my face, which I would not normally wear because I need to maintain my Asian skin. But you know, these are the things when you actually explain them the journey of like, what does that look like? And I think that's how you make it make sense for them. And I think the important thing to remember is you could be an innovator or you could be someone who comes in later. And a lot of times the money is made in the beginning, in the nascency of actually getting into technology and into business. And I think being someone's first, and I don't want to get into all the gory details and understand all of your stories of your first everything, but generally you remember your first love, your first CD, if you're older, I'm older, or even your first concert. So these are all things where there becomes an emotional connection that people remember you because you brought them into Web3 and the blockchain and you made sense to them.
Exactly. Actually, we did have such a fantastic conversation on Zoom that I was very tempted for them to just stream the conversation because it was all right there. So just key takeaways from what we've talked about, you know, especially with the pitfalls with marketing and promoting is the jargon and the terminology, of course, is very confusing, and a lot of us just need to stop using it or find different ways of communicating it so that it becomes easier. Less friction points across the payment systems, which is also another really important point. And then going just as closing statements, maybe we can have one or two questions. I don't know if we have time for that, but does anyone want to add any new and what's next? What's coming up? Anyone wants to drop any alpha? Now's your chance.
I love alpha, and if you're in this room, you're gonna get it. You know, I'm a person where if you speak to me or anyone on our team, you know, we're incredibly hopeful because we see the impact of this space every single day being at Spatial. You know, on this stage right now are 3 women that I'm proud to work with. You know, the showrooms for the Fabricant and the World of Women drop. I see thousands of women per week wear a Women is Power shirt in Spatial, and they're proud. They're proud of that, you know. I see, you know, our community wear the Artisan, and there's a new contest they're doing about fashion masculinities. These wonderful stories and narratives are starting to emerge in Web3. New routes of culture and self-expression. The space is extremely special. You all know that in this room. It's very, very special. So what I'm most excited about is seeing the rise of new creators and voices and cultural stories. And, you know, the job of us platforms is to ensure that humanity is reflected there. You know, what we're doing in immersive tech, it's not supposed to replace the real world. These products are here to enhance humanity. And studios, like the Fabricon and Artisan, are building community around this new phase of fashion. So I find it extremely exciting. And what I get more excited about, this year on Spatial, we're dropping our new Unity SDK. So everything in Spatial is drag and drop. You got 3D files, drag and drop them in. You got a new collection, drop it in. That's your new immersive fashion gallery, that's your NFT gallery, that's your new showroom, that's your business. And what I found is it doesn't matter your economic status, it does not matter where you come from or the oppositions you've had in the physical world. What I see in Web3 and in fashion is the new voices of identity, human identity and culture. And for us, that Unity SDK is to make it much easier for creators to express themselves, for creation to be seen around the world, and to champion voices like the women on this stage who are making a real difference in sustainability, identity, diversity, and championing these values that we all know are true to Web3. And to me, it's been an honor being here with all of you, but also an honor to support the voices of people like the women on this stage.
Let's freaking woo!
Does anyone in the audience have questions? I don't know if we have time for maybe one or two.
Sir?
What's up? I'm Michael Pearson. I'm doing Beam ads as targeted ads for blockchain analytics across Web3. And I'm curious about the fashion world. I'm not too familiar. How do you differentiate across channels and strategies for different platforms and brands that you're working with? Like, what about different types of brands, different types of fashion, as you think about your strategy differently?
That's a good question. I'll think about it for a second.
I appreciate that question because a lot of brands come, especially to Spatial, and the first thing I have to, inspect is their product market fit? Does our product match your needs and the story that you're trying to tell in Web3? And so for most brands entering this space, the first thing is, what are you trying to tell? Like, what are you trying to speak to a community? If you're coming here and you're just like, I want to make sales, you're probably not going to resonate unless you have a story. So for us, for instance, Vogue is one of our partners. Vogue Singapore is a great partner. We spent about 6 months building their strategy. They've had 60,000 dedicated fans join their community on Spatial, which we're very proud about. But, in that, it was more an exercise of community building. They're, a media, agency. They're looking to communicate storytelling in Web3, so that had to be a dance. But then we have all these wonderful creators on Spatial, and I'm very excited because we're going to be participating in Open Metaverse Fashion Week this year, and that's a different strategy when we're thinking about creators because we have to lift their voices differently. We have to look at collaboration cross-platform, and so it really depends on the story that the brand or creator is trying to tell and how we match the technology to them.
Yeah, I guess there are a lot of surprises in the industry when unexpected things happen. Like, for example, the Fashioning Masculinities contest that is hosted on Spatial platform, and suddenly Clonex community wants to lend us their avatars to model the looks of finalists, and then Maybelline and L'Oreal jump in and they're like, can you design some outfits for us, and can we also put them in the gallery and have like a photo booth there? So it's just like all mixes in, and I guess like audience mix in, but for us, it's very important to understand where do we find the target audience for each particular brand. So if it's a collaboration with Puma, we're going to go to certain media. For example, for Fashioning Masculinities contests, we go to Esquire because they're focusing on men's fashion, and I guess their audience would appreciate the cover story on this contest more than any other medium, not even like Vogue Singapore. So it's mostly for us focusing on who is the target audience and where we can find them.
I know Nico is trying to get us off here, but I had to get in the last word for one moment.
We also love you, Nico.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I got permission. I want to make it make sense for you. I mean, we can always connect afterwards as well, but I think what's in it for you as you look at all these partners, right? Like, who is their audience? I mean, are you doing menswear? Are you doing women's wear? Are you kind of doing the non-binary space? What kind of added value are they actually going to give you? How much can you negotiate for? And negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. Do not ever take the first deal. But I think those are the ways to really just consider. I mean, just very briefly, because I know Nico wants us to end, but I think about those things and look and evaluate. Yes, we'll talk afterwards.
And also connect with us after.
Thank you all. That was a super, super enlightening panel. Please do connect with all of us after. If
Can we give it up for our great crowd, though?
Yeah, I know. Amazing.
Okay, let's go! All right, you guys are definitely awake. At least the ones over here, I'm just saying.
All right, we love you guys. We'll see you in Web3.
Thank you so much. It was amazing. Thank you, Shumi.